So it's Carl Ford again here at Exceda's Connection 2011, and I'm here with Catherine Weldon, who is from Current Analysis, and she is the Principal Analyst of Enterprise Mobility. So Catherine, welcome. And let's start off with the real fun questions, because you've been looking at enterprise mobility and what the carriers are offering. What's your take? Do we need 4G? Do we need LTE right off the bat? Where does M end up?
I mean, obviously, the majority of machine-to-machine applications now do not need 4G technology, but since that's where the carriers are headed and that's what they're really excited about, in addition to the fact that when it comes to global connectivity, it may actually make things easier, as, for example, a CDMA carrier is trying to be interoperable with a European carrier. So there are already use cases that I see where sort of evening the playing field with 4G makes sense. But as far as the actual applications today, the vast minority of them, video surveillance being one possible exception, digital signage being a possible exception, and sort of telematics, infotainment services being another, where you really will start generating a lot of real-time data, or at least a lot of data.
So OnStar Netflix, in effect, is
right.
what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's an interesting concept. So now let's talk about the overall marketplace. Is there any particular part of the marketplace you like, or what do you see, and where do you see the growth?
I mean, I cover the carriers principally and their ecosystem partners, and there's been a huge evolution, over the last couple of years. I mean, before, when I was talking about machine-to-machine, I was talking to the aggregators. I was talking to Core Telematics and Numerex and Eris.net, and they still have a role in the market, but the role has changed, and the carriers got very excited about a new opportunity to use wireless data. And then it's taken a while. It's taken several years before everyone said this is the year. I mean, and that's true of enterprise mobility in general. But it does seem as if this sort of future where we're seeing billions and billions of potentially connected devices, is starting to creep up on us. The problem for the carriers, it's not really a problem, but I'd say it's a challenge, is differentiation, global connectivity, and also how far to go up the value chain. They don't want to be a dumb pipe. They also don't want to be an end-to-end systems integrator necessarily, business process outsourcing company. But they want to be something in between. And that's sort of a tightrope that they walk in general when it comes to all network services. And certainly when it comes to enterprise mobility in general, and very specifically in machine-to-machine. So I'm seeing them all say, well, we're starting to look at particular verticals. We're hiring a lot of people with specific vertical expertise. We're looking at certain markets where we're going to possibly resell some hardware, software components, or we'll invest in in companies that seem to have a lot of potential, either with a particular application or a particular device. On the other hand, are they going to really do soup to nuts advisory, systems integration, and analytics, which is kind of a very interesting opportunity for someone.
Right.
Possibly more for the systems integrators again, and the IBMs and the Accentures who are getting involved in a lot of the analytics. But it seems as if there's a role and financial opportunity for everyone in the ecosystem. The question is where are the profits going to come from? In the carriers, in particular, you talk about relatively low ARPUs, certainly compared to their regular consumer services. So there's different ways to look at that in order to scale the business. For example, the service delivery platforms, sort of the low-level platforms that provide automated SIM management and that kind of thing, really do help a lot in terms of profitability, because the costs are contained a lot more. And then, but then if you look down the road, you would think that managed services and systems integration and playing a deeper role in the end-to-end solution has got to be where the carriers are looking.
Okay, and right now it seems like a very competitive marketplace. Like they've all discovered the red ocean here, and the quote metaphors. And and the question I got for you is, for the specific marketplaces, are they looking to have a single source provider on the carrier, or are they looking for a competitive marketplace? And are carriers capable of delivering a global solution?
The global situation is sticky as far as I'm concerned right now. Roaming is available on a widespread basis from all carriers, and it's fine when you're at 2.5G speeds. But when you're talking about high bandwidth apps, it's really not going to cut it.
Okay.
And it seems like there's different ways of dealing with that problem. Some maybe it just has to do with relationships. Some carriers, obviously have parent organizations who are in Europe and they're in the U.S., so that that they have sort of natural synergies.
Or
down
currently
the road.
have.
Currently used to have, or.
Right.
And then there's technologies that that you hear about a fair amount having to do with actually allowing in-country rates, on the same global SIM. But at the moment, it's still kind of regionally split, and but every carrier I speak to says, "Oh yes, we are now really seeing a global opportunity here," and and that's fine to be a single source as long as you're not talking about high bandwidth. And even 3G, which we didn't used to think of as high bandwidth, and
right.
until 4G started coming along instead. So there are definitely challenges ahead. And then, if I were a large enterprise trying to look for a single source solution, I might go to the carrier. I mean, for example, if I'm a large utility and I'm already doing a lot of wireline business with a carrier, it would probably make sense to go to that same carrier, for a large meter reading or possibly smart grid application as well. The carriers, are all trying to get some expertise in those verticals, but I don't even think, for example, when you think where does Exida fit into these solutions, Exida allows the carriers to really be able to adapt so many different kinds of applications, fairly quickly and painlessly, and it almost replaces the kinds of custom applications that either a systems integrator or potentially a carrier, but not so much at this point, would be or the enterprise themselves would having to be developed in-house. So Exida kind of adds to the set of carrier solutions by providing that next level up from the service delivery platform to the application-oriented platform.
Got it. Any aspect of the business right now that you feel is like the hockey stick of growth? Is there a particular place you like?
Well, I mean, there's first the low-hanging fruit, which seems to be utility and automotive, and healthcare is this holy grail that I don't think, I think there will be huge growth there. But the problem is the business models are pretty complex. The regulatory environment is very complicated, particularly on a global basis, where there's different confidentiality rules, in every single country, and the payer economics are very different. They're certainly in flux in this country, and in other countries it's pretty complicated too. And the sort of traditional industrial monitoring applications, they make a whole lot of sense to me, assuming that you're collecting data that can really turn into actionable information. So you're preventing failures in large manufacturing environments. It just makes a whole lot of sense to be monitoring and preventing disasters. Think of a nuclear power plant,
right?
Where you would really like to know what's going on in advance, if possible.
So are we going to see predictive systems in the near future? Then do you feel that that's a possibility? Or?
I think so. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and those companies that are going to get involved from the analytics perspective, we're not even sure who they are yet. I think, you certainly, I think of Accenture, but I also think of companies like SAP Sybase who are doing a lot of in the analytics engine side of this, and I'm sure are going to get more involved in machine to machine.
Cool.
So it's wide open.
Great.
Yep.
Catherine, thank you for telling us about the opportunities.
My pleasure. Thanks.